Everybody ready? Barry?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the meeting of City Council to order and recognize that Mr. Bly is absent. He had a stroke the first part of last week and is home recovering and nicely, but suggested that he should not be here tonight. So he's getting along better. Please remember to turn off your cell phones, and we've asked Ms. Hilliard if she'll offer our invocation.
Let us pray. Most holy and all-wise God, it's again that we come. Lord God, we thank you for this beautiful day, the rain, and we're so glad that you have made this day, and we will rejoice. Father God, we ask that you would lead us in our endeavors as we go about the business of the city, dear God. May all the decisions that we make be the good of the people, dear God. And we'll give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is introduction of new employees, and we have 3. Alan, would you like to go first?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Johnson, other esteemed members of Council, Mr. Martin, Mr. Williams, and Citizens President. Tonight, we'd like to introduce you 2 new employees, one of which could not be here tonight. She had an emergency this afternoon, so wasn't able to make it. That is Ms. Erica Everett. She is a benefits program specialist who was previously a support enforcement specialist with the Department of Child Support Enforcement. Has been there for a little over 2.5 years. She has a Bachelor in Business Administration from Old Dominion and currently taking courses still at Old Dominion to complete a 2nd degree in accounting. Wants to eventually go into Mr. Burgess and Mr. Cheatham's job and possibly into governmental finance. I'll send her over to Ms. Rollins and we'll scare her away from that. Keep her in
or
social
talk
service.
her out of it in the meantime.
That's right. Secondly, we welcome Ms. LaToya Jarrett. Ms. came to our agency as a social worker on March 26th. She's earned a Bachelor of Social Work from Norfolk State, further her education with the Master of Arts in Urban Education. Started her career in the human services field with the Office of Human Affairs at Head Start in Newport News. There she was a case manager that assisted families with preschool-aged children and prepared them for public school. She was then hired by the Tidewater AIDS Community Task Force in Norfolk, was a medical case manager that assisted people living with the HIV/AIDS virus with all facets of their care, including housing, community resources, benefits, and on and on and on. It was really kind of their right-hand person. Within that agency, she also developed support groups for women and the folks who needed them there, and created an annual fundraiser for that agency. When we, just to give a little, sometimes you have to look at why do people work in places. When we called for a reference, they said, well, we knew she was going to be leaving because we were a grant-funded agency, and the grant funds are not flowing as well as they used to be. So there's sometimes when payday comes around and there is no payday. We have to make it up later. We are very happy with her experience so far with her. She's been a great addition to our agency, and somebody who is committed to helping the people that she works with. So we are grateful for Ms. Jarrett coming, and also Ms. Everett, who was unfortunately not able to be here.
I think someone is
Erica Everett, who is actually from Franklin area. So she's here. So, and Ms. Everett is a benefits program specialist for us.
And he's already bragged about you before you got here. Well, welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming to be a part of Social Service. Davis?
Mayor Council, Member of Council, City Council, to our City Manager, Mr. Martin, City Attorney, Mr. Williams. Good evening.
Greetings.
Truly, it is my pleasure to present to some and introduce to others our newest employee in Parks and Recreation. I guess you would agree with me, it's always good to see a son of the city return home. A lot of us, once we get a degree and a little experience, we like to move other places. But when a son comes home, it's always good. Our employee will be working in the athletic section, assisting Mr. Butch in his work with athletics. And also, he will be doing things promoting wellness in the city. He's a graduate of Franklin High School. He went on from Franklin High School to attend North Carolina Wesleyan College, where he has a BS in exercise science. He's had work experiences in working with wellness programs in YMCAs in Yorktown, and also right here in Franklin at the YMCA. He's also worked at the Virginia Beach Field House in Virginia Beach doing athletic types of programs. Truly, we are glad to welcome him to our department, and he now becomes one of the happy employees of the city of Franklin. So at this time, I present to you Mr. Peter Clay Hyatt.
Welcome to all three of you. We're glad to have you part of the team. The next item on the agenda is a presentation, the 50th Anniversary Gala Committee. Dan Howe, Holivesy.
We're kind of lopsided.
This is one of the lieutenants of the committee we had, 11 folks on our committee that worked on the commemoration and celebration of the 50-year anniversary of Franklin. During last year, up until February of this year, when we had the big gala event, and it went very well. Let me see if I can remember who's not here. Diane Tobin is not here, and Pam Ellis, Teresa Neal, and Clyde Parker, Victor Scory. I think the rest of my wife Judy's not here, but anyhow, we started out last year, earlier in the year, with a lot of activities, and I'm not going to go through all the activities that we participated in last year and helped sponsor and took part in. But right from the outset, we said that this is not a money-making project. We're not going to put the money in the bank. We make more than we spend, and so forth. So we decided if there were any net funds left over, they would be donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Franklin. And we were running if and tuck for a long time on that, but right toward the end of it, Mayor Council wrote letters, about 70 or 80 letters or something to businesses and individuals around town and contacted people, and he really helped put it over the top. He enlisted the help of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters and IP and some of the other major sponsors and minor sponsors and in-between sponsors. Anyway, so we ended up being very happy to cover the expenses, and we have over $7,500 that we're going to present to the Boys and Girls Club tonight. So to you, we're happy to be able to do that. I went to the Boys and Girls Club function last summer and saw how they operate, what they're trying to do and everything. Everybody goes in pictures. And it's a very, very worthwhile organization. I was very favorably impressed with their operations and so forth. So I encourage you to support them in any way. This is a good help in that part, I say. Thank you.
Right by the check. You're the reason it's here.
Thank you. One of these banks are actually going to take
Well, it's very exciting. I'm T.V. Dixon. I'm the Director of Operations with Boys and Girls Clubs in Southeast Virginia, and Franklin is one of our units. We are just most gracious and very grateful. We've been really striving hard here in Franklin to increase our programming, increase our attendance, and the efforts are showing. So we invite you out anytime. We're located there at S.P. Warren Elementary School, Monday through Friday. They're there after school from 3 to 8. We're gearing up for our summer program. Right now, we're averaging about 60 kids that are coming every day after school. So we're just having a good time, and this will certainly help. Definitely get some kids in the program and to help us increase our programming and do different things. So we're just most gracious. Thank you so much.
The next item on our agenda is any amendments to the agenda. And if not, we'll proceed to citizens' time. We have several people who've signed up for citizen time. As I was reminding young lady earlier, we have 5, and we allow 15 minutes. So if you can, be conscientious of that and take about 3 minutes apiece, and we can get through in about a 15-minute block of time. So the first person who signed up is Sabrina Wellington.
I'm Sabrina Wellington. I have a petition of 129 signatures from the citizens of Franklin regarding issues in our community. They would like to address some issues of the following, which is I'll be presenting, and I signed up for. My address is on the paper. The first is the light bill, which consists of light, water, sewage, trash, recycle, and various types taxes and percentages. We ask that the light bill be reduced to economic production level for our area or a fixed rate. We want one tax per the bill. Also, for public work, ditches and drainage needs to be cleaned out with safe and secure fences and open passageways to keep the water flows that cause flooding. They also spoke of roads that needs to be repaired that have holes, and the business that has holes in the area that needs to be repaired. One of the other issue was the sign that's right near the they asked for a reduced sign of speeding right near the Pretlow apartment. Just before you get into Franklin, as you pass through, as you're coming into Franklin. Health insurance, affordable health insurance for all areas according to the economic production. If an employee is unable to purchase insurance, they should be able to purchase it through another provider. Another issue is bringing more business to the city to benefit the city and create jobs for citizens. Personal property taxes, cars, and houses. If your car meets the requirement of ANSI, then it should not pay taxes, or it should be required to be pay the minimum required as a historical ANSI. for a house that pays tax should be at the minimum amount based on the the age and value of the house or car, affordable for the rated percentage. They also ask for a neighborhood watch in all areas to keep our community safe. Educational programs for the kids after school will show positive action to our community. Daycare based on income meet the state regulations. Clean up your area day. We used to have that a long time ago. They want that back into our community. Recreation for all ages, job replacement, and training. In closing, they ask that the citizens, nor should the city money should be used for candidate elections. Money from the citizens should be limited per cost pertaining to the expenses of the city only. These are some issues that the people would like to address to better our community and our environment. And I have a petition of 129.
Good. Please, would you please get the city attorney and the city manager? Thank you.
And thank you.
Did you give a list of your items as well? Is that on that?
Yes, it's the same.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
The next person is Herman Parker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Greetings.
I have a few, I believe that lady spoke mostly of them, but I would have liked to have been up here as a new city worker myself, but I felt like on my application I was perjured by that because of the person working on the application. My second issue, I'm trying to make this brief as possible, is you still have workers that are off on Saturday and Sunday, because I've done some checking on it, and they're still wearing uniforms and using the city vehicles and showing up at certain places to eat every morning. And I know for a fact that they got to be dressed up for some reason like that, using a city vehicle. My third comment I'd like to make is I have respect for each and every one of you sitting up there behind that chair. But I feel like to some point there's an unfairness showed towards, like, certain people try to make points across, and, well, we've already discussed it, or, you know, there's no need discussing it. You might have discussed it, but it wasn't discussed amongst the citizens. And in that respect, I think it should be, because I watch public TV just about every time it comes on. And I think it's part of the chaos sometimes amongst y'all as a team, and I believe y'all can make a good team. And it would just be better if because I like to hear what each and every one of you got to say. And sometimes some are more interesting than others, but when he brings up a tender topic, it's like shut off. And that's to me, very disrespectful when that's done. And as a citizen, I can honestly say I want to hear what each and every one of you have to say, because I think all of you would make a good team unit. And I mean, I'm going through a lot myself. I'm unemployed. I've tried 2 or 3 times to get with the city. I'm the type of person, I'm going to speak what I feel. And years ago, we did have, I think, city manager determine who got hired and who didn't. And now you've got somebody in there that hires people, and it's due to some type of prejudice. And that's about all I can say. But I do wish each and one of you good evening.
Dr. Linwood Johnson.
to the Honorable Mayor Council, Vice Mayor Johnson, to members of the council, to the one who's absent, Councilman Bly. We pray him a speedy recovery. To the city manager, Mr. Martin, and the city attorney, good evening.
Great.
I will be very brief. I have over 200 petitions of job development in our city, job and small business creation, master plan, and buy and shop in the city of Franklin. I have over 200 signatures of concerned citizens who would like to see economic development and prosperity in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Michael Foreman.
Good evening
Greetings.
to the Honorable Council and to the City Manager and the City Attorney. I will be brief. I would just come to say that I agree with economic development and that the city should continue their aggressive role in bringing forth economic development because it's something that will keep the city's bloodline going and also help deal with the issues of the light bill and also with revenue so that we can continue to be the city that Franklin was built on, which was in the past Franklin Depot. It's built for business, and we can be the leaders in business again for this 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you. William Cannon.
William Cannon, 112 Page Street, Franklin, Virginia. I come before you tonight to follow up on a recent article by one of the council members on lack of accountability by City Council. Councilman Burgess, 2 to 3 meetings ago, discovered the funds in the electric fund dropping dramatically, and we thank him for discovering that. We then discovered in the next meeting that over a period of 6 or 7 months, it had gone down over $1 million or even more than that. We're not quite sure how much it is. Hopefully, the new city manager will be able to tell us that soon. Everyone on council seems shocked, especially Councilman Burgess and Cheatham, who pride themselves in fiscal responsibility as CPAs and watching over the money we spend in the city. By Councilman Burgess's reaction, no one from staff or the past city manager had discussed this with him or the full council. Question to City Council: why did not city staff not tell them about this during their monthly public meeting like we have tonight? If Mr. Burgess had not discovered this, when were they planning on telling to us? Were they under orders from the past city manager not to discuss this? Isn't it strange this became public knowledge just after the new city manager took over? We, the citizens, are entitled to these answers if we're the ones who suffer the consequences. If you will not, we expect accountability and not moving forward and not holding the person accountable like we've always done in the past. That will not be tolerated. Next, you could have had your solution to this problem by now. We need to know before the election if our electric rates will go up like our trash fees and how many programs will be cut to make up the difference. My guess is that you'll wait until after the election, so we will not hold you responsible for the solution. You know that. As our elected officials, you share in the blame for lack of oversight, just as the lack of oversight got us in trouble with SIPSA and the charter changes. Also, isn't it strange you have not talked about upcoming real estate rate possible increases? I guess this is being saved till after the election also. Next, we've had 2 mayor debates, and they've been really good, and the next one, I believe, is tomorrow night. It gives us a chance to hear from the candidates. But I and other citizens have a concern that one of the candidates will have missed 2 of the 3 debates, which gives us a chance to hear what their views are. Ms. Johnson, the people have a right to hear the views and not what others have said about you. It gives us a chance to see you up front what's going on. Also, a question for you. If you were at the debate, I would ask you at the last debate, you said you would support Ms. Murphy to take your place in your ward. If this is the direction of your leadership, then she supported for no more zeros in the school, plus boycotted the vote with 2 other council members and never gave the public an explanation why she didn't show up for the vote. If a lot of us are questioning, if this is the type of person you would support, then what other things would you support that we cannot find out since you won't be at the debates? Mr. Mayor, a lot of people are looking for you to change how things are run. convince us you can. You made a lot of people mad with the airport issue, but I bet some of those wish the council had followed your advice and have put a cushion in our last real estate rate increases like you suggested, so the shortfall from unexpected expenses we're now experiencing would not be so bad. Franklin is more than just a select few trying to influence the election. Give us a good reason you're the best to lead us for the next term. At least being at debates show you have nothing to hide. Mr. McLemore, public opinion has you burning too many bridges. They might be right, but if you're qualified to run, you have a right to run just like anyone else. So I wish people would quit telling you not to run. Also, to your credit, you're one of 2 councilmen to talk about bringing industries or jobs to Franklin and including the citizens in our government. Also, you're right. If we do not get a different blend to our council, the next 2 years will be no better than the last 2, which have been the most unproductive 2 years of our council's existence. The blend of our current council...
You're getting close on time.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you for letting me know, Mr. Mayor.
You're actually over, so you're about to finish?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
Finally, to the Tidewater News. Who came up with the deadline at 5 p.m. on April the 18th as the deadline to submit letters to the editor on the elections? Then you have to submit them as paid advertisement. It is as someone's trying to control our freedom of speech or trying to control what we hear to make decisions on council. I thought our newspaper was to report news and not control it. Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is minutes of the April 9th meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion's are second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And aye. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is financial matters.
Good evening, Mayor Council, Vice Mayor Johnson, other council members, to our city manager, Mr. Martin, and our city attorney, Mr. Williams, and to all assembled, good evening.
Good evening.
As you are aware, March 31st, 2012 marks the conclusion of the third quarter of the current fiscal year. We are fastly approaching the conclusion of fiscal year 2011-2012. At this particular time, a third quarter review of the city's finances is warranted. You do have in your agenda material this evening a document that kind of explains where we are in terms of our revenue collections and also comparison of those particular collections to March 31st, 2011. In addition, you also have an estimated projection of where the city expects to end at fiscal year 2012 in terms of both revenue and expenditures for the various funds of the city. First, we're going to take a look at our local revenues, starting with our general property taxes. For fiscal year 2012, your financial report shows you that as of March 31st, 2012, we've collected 62.6% of the budget for general property taxes. That is $4.145 million. When you look at last fiscal year at this particular time, March 31st, 2011, we had collected $4.08 million, or 53.5% of the budget. So overall, you do see some improvement in overall general property tax collections at March 31st, 2012. For the purpose of our general property taxes, we do want to explain to our citizens that general property taxes is comprised of our current and delinquent real estate and personal property taxes, our machinery and tools, our public service corporation taxes, and of course our penalty and interest on these particular taxes. In terms of where the city is expected to end at the end of the fiscal year, we expect that the actual revenue for general property taxes is projected to exceed fiscal year 2011 by approximately $143,000. As you can see, last fiscal year, 2011, our revenue for general property taxes was $6.56 million. We're projecting $6.765 million for fiscal year 2012. Why the increase? Higher delinquent property, personal property, and real estate tax collections, and the associated penalties and interests associated with these taxes. So again, we do expect some increase in our general property taxes over last fiscal year. Let's look at this based on a graph of our real estate taxes first. I kind of wanted to show the taxes of where we were in the last couple of fiscal years. It kind of shows fiscal year 09-10 actual compared to fiscal year 10-11 actual, where we are fiscal year 11-12 budget. Also, we want to project out 9 months at this fiscal year, March 31st, 2012, and it provides the comparison, as just discussed, at March 31st, 2011. Then, of course, we're going to also conclude the graph with what we estimate the real estate taxes to be at the end of June 30th, 2012. For the purposes of our reporting tonight, we're going to concentrate basically on these three numbers actually, the 9 months ending March 31st, 2011, 12, and our estimated actual. The next is our personal property taxes. Earlier I mentioned that personal property taxes at March 31st, 2011, combined with all of our other general property taxes, is expected to exceed collections from our last fiscal year. For the 9 months ending March 31st, 2011, we had collected $2.199 million. For 9 months ending March 31st, 2012, personal property tax collections were $2.25 million. We expect at the end of the fiscal year, our revenue from personal property taxes to be about $2.361 million. And I do want to say that the numbers that you see here for personal property tax actually reflects 100% of the personal property tax of the PPTRA reimbursement. Next, we're going to look at the delinquent taxes and the penalty and interest. Earlier, I mentioned that we do expect these particular revenue sources to exceed what we have budgeted this particular fiscal year. The blue bars represent the penalty and interest, and the red bars represent our collections of real estate and personal property delinquent taxes. And if you just want to kind of follow the pattern, you can see here that the 9 months ended March 31st, 2011, for penalty and interest was $116,000. Look where we are at March 31st, 2012. For that particular revenue source, we're at $152,000. For our delinquent real estate and personal property taxes, at March 31st, 2011, we were at $327,000. This fiscal year was slightly below at $313,000. Where we expect to be at the end of the fiscal year, for our penalties and interest, we expect to collect about $170,000. And for all our real estate and personal property delinquent taxes, we expect to collect about $343,000. Okay?
Ms. Rollins?
Yes.
Was there a budgeted number in the budget that would correspond to that as far as what you had estimated we might do?
Yes. This particular column right here, Mayor, shows the fiscal year 11-12 budget.
Okay, good. So we're way ahead of budget.
$130,000,
Okay.
correct, for budget. We expect to end up about $170
Okay.
for the collections, $183 budget versus
Good.
what we expect to end.
Thank
Okay?
you.
You're welcome. Other local taxes consist of the following items: our sale and use taxes, our consumer utility taxes, business license, cigarette taxes, meals taxes, lodging taxes, and other local taxes consist of our bank stock, recordation, and our vehicle license fees. The items highlighted in the asterisk indicates that we provide some breakdown in terms of some graphs. I believe council members at the various monthly reporting cycles like to see these particular areas and where we are. Overall, local tax analysis. For fiscal year 2012, we estimate the collections will be about $70,000 below budget in terms of our other local taxes, and we explain why. First, while our meals taxes and our cigarette taxes do show improvement over fiscal year 2011, our meals tax increased about $61,000, and our cigarette taxes increased about $37,000 compared to March 31st, 2011. Our meals taxes, however, in terms of our budget, is expected to be about $50,000 below budget, while cigarette taxes is expected to be about $15,000 above budget. Now, I do want to say for our for our meals taxes, the actual projection for fiscal year 2012 actually increased from $1.1455 million budget to a $1.3 million budget. But again, we expect that to be closer to our fiscal year 2011 actual collections. Our local sales and lodging taxes increased $20,000 each over the same period last year, so that shows some signs of improvement. However, our consumer utilities taxes is projected to be about $40,000 below budget. We project this fiscal year about $940,000 for our business license, and we do expect to be on target with that particular projection. Let's take a look at the meals taxes. As alluded to earlier, the actual budget for meals taxes, fiscal year 2012, is $1.3 million. I mentioned that we expect to be about $50,000 short of $1,251,000. Again, that budget this year was $1.3 million compared to $1.155 million in fiscal year 2011. Look where we are in terms of our 9 months at March 31st, 2011 versus March 31st, 2012. Our meals taxes for this particular projection purpose does reflect that this is a 1-month accrual. So March 31st, 2012 gave us an estimate projection for the month of March. Again, I wanted to project out where we expect to end at the end of the fiscal year. For our sales taxes, we have 9 months ended March 31st, 2011, $1.189 million. Pretty consistent with March 31st, 2012, an actual little gradual increase at $1.2 million. For our sales tax, we expect to be pretty close to what we budgeted for fiscal year 2012, showing the $1.6 million here, also showing the estimated projection at the end of the fiscal year at also the $1.6 million.
Ms. Rollins, before you leave that,
yes.
May I interrupt you?
Mm-hmm.
We're about even with where we were last year, but we're going to have a pretty good increase between now and the end of the year. How did you derive that? How did you derive that we were going to end up at 1.6? What did you look at last year's collections and put them into this year, or are you receiving data from the state that says we're going to be?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there?
Okay, a couple of different things. First and foremost, the projection, as you can see, for the March 31st, 2012, does reflect an estimated amount for 2 months because we know the sales tax is a 2-month accrual. Basically, what I did was looked at the collections for this fiscal year, sort of came up with an average projection and kind of projected it out for 12 months to kind of get an estimate of what we would end up being at the end of the fiscal year. And I guess with the understanding in terms of whether or not there's any significant businesses or anything significant happening within the city as to whether or not our sales taxes will actually increase, it's pretty much a little bit more so in line, or relatively in line, with what we received in fiscal year 2011, a little slight increase. So that's how I came up with the projection for fiscal year 2012. Okay. But no additional information from the state, just basically projecting out what we've gotten thus far in averaging it out for a 12-month period.
And no effort was made to try to anticipate what the additional workers at the mill that are over there now may do to our meals tax or sales tax?
No, not necessarily taking all of that taking that into account, no. But the only other thing I can add, by looking at the actual revenue that kind of came in January and February, if that was a little bit more than the previous months, the beginning of the fiscal year, then you have some increased amounts within that average. So hopefully it will sort of kind of, be pretty close.
We'll get more,
hoping we will get closer, absolutely. That's a very good point.
Okay.
Doesn't look like we're going to advance till we get rid of that message.
Hit the X.
Thank you. Our lodging taxes, $150,000 budgeted for fiscal year 11-12. 9 months projected with the 1 month accrual in there, about $101,000 at March 31st, 2012, compared to where we were at March 31st, fiscal year 11. Some improvement there from 101 to 116. Now, we do have an estimated actual fiscal year 2012, about $158,000, which would be close to budget. Now, that is a significant increase, I do understand, from what we collected from fiscal year 2011 to fiscal year 2012. Don't really know a reason for that, but again, my fiscal year 11 projection was based on what we have collected for 8 months this particular fiscal year. So there is some improvement in terms of I believe we have 3 hotels and a bed and breakfast within the city. So that is showing some signs of improvement. Our cigarette taxes, $239,000 projected at fiscal year 2012. We expect to be slightly above that, as alluded to earlier, about $253,000 at the end of the fiscal year. We were $156,000 in 2011 at this particular time versus $193,000 at March 31st, 2012. Some signs of improvement in the cigarette tax revenue as well. Other local revenue sources consist of our permits, fees, and fines, our charges for service, and of course our revenue sharing payment from Alawai County. In terms of our revenue from permits, fees, and fines, fiscal year 2012 collections at this particular time, $78,894 is consistent with fiscal year 2011. Overall, I expect that our revenue from this particular source would be about $120,000 budgeted versus $110,000. Excuse me, I do expect this source to be about $110,000 actual, but the actual budget is $120,000 for permits, fees, and fines, so $10,000 below budget. Our charges for service consist primarily of our revenue for ambulance fees, waste collection and disposal, and our charges for services from the various funds in the city. Fiscal year 2012 collections at March 31st, 2012 were $1.828 million. That is 68.49% of the budget. Pretty consistent with last fiscal year at this particular time, 68% of the budget, or $1.863 million. That is a slight drop. Overall, where we expect to end up in the fiscal year, overall projections are expected to be approximately $84,000 below budget, and that's associated with some things that have already been discussed during previous financial reports. Our ambulance fees, $30,000 less than budget. Our waste collection disposal fees, we're projecting about $54,000, which is pretty much in line with what we received in fiscal year 2011. In terms of our ambulance fees, we do understand that we're not servicing Alawai County, and there has been some delay in our payments due to some recent Medicare changes in terms of billing for ambulance services for that particular revenue source. And our revenue sharing payment from Alawai County, we do know that we've already received the $900,000 for that source. Conversation with the finance director in Alawai County revealed that the city will receive a true-up payment, and our final projected revenue source for that, and our final projected revenue for that particular source would be $1,090,000, $10,000 less than our budget.
Could you repeat those last few words, less than what?
Yes, that is $10,000 less than our budget for that particular revenue source. We had budgeted $1.1 million for that revenue sharing payment. We'll get $1,090,000.
What does that compare to what it used to be when IP was doing business?
Well, about this particular year, it will be the same. Remember, we took a hit in last fiscal year where we only collected $409,000 because of the changes in the accounting for the payment. But going forward, if I'm understanding your question, we would lose pretty much all of that this fiscal year until additional business is occurring at the plant.
So for my clarity, you're saying that we took the hit last fiscal year for anticipating the loss that we would be getting. So we're not experiencing that loss yet, or do we look for this to stay consistent at this one point? You said we're like 10,000 something below what we had budgeted for now.
No, this particular payment, that $1.1 million that we're budgeting this year, will go away next year. We'll be hit with that. Closing of that facility will be hit with that. The impact will first occur in fiscal year 2012-13. We would not see that revenue amount budgeted for next year. Okay, our state aid consists of personal property tax relief, our taxes on deeds, our street and highway maintenance funds, of course, state grants, our shared expenses for our constitutional officers, and auto rental taxes. Overall, at March 31st, 2012, we were $2.5 million collected compared to about $2.75 million at the same period last fiscal year. And that's primarily one reason for that is that VDOT grant that we received in fiscal year 2011 that we did not receive in fiscal year 2012. In fiscal year 12, we expect that the city will receive about $37,000 less in our 599 local law enforcement funds, and that is due to the decision by the city based on the mandated state program to reduce the aid to localities, whereby the city had to go in and pick different funds to actually give money back to the state, so that was one of those revenue sources. Federal aid is pretty self-explanatory. We know
Go
this.
back to that slide, please.
Yes.
You said the VDOT grant received in 2011 was $216,000. It was not received. Is that accumulated in a conglomerate to show that you have a slight increase, a slight reduction for 2012 in the line above that? Is that the one item that makes that difference?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that was additional funds that the city received on top of the regular street and highway maintenance.
Did that have any impact on our budget, or was that was not money we anticipated, so did revenues just down, but we didn't have an offsetting expense against that? Would it balance out?
If I'm understanding your question right, that 216 that we received in fiscal year 2011
Right.
and how that impacted us in fiscal year 2012.
If you didn't get it in 2012, did we have an offsetting reduction in expenditures because we weren't going to get it? So did that kind of zero out, or?
If I may, Mayor Council, if the Director of Public Works is here or his assistant, if I can defer that question, and the reason why I want to do that is if that $216,000 was used for a particular purpose, then it wouldn't have that impact going into that fiscal year. So I'm not sure exactly what that $216 in fiscal year 2011 was used for.
That was the 50/50 revenue sharing project where we paid on it, right?
But I guess my question was, if we didn't get it in 2012, because we weren't going to get it, we didn't have an expenditure marked against that. So it's not going to show up as a loss in our total revenue because we didn't have an expense.
That's
okay.
correct. Okay.
That's what I want to be sure
Okay.
of.
Okay. All right, taking a look at the actual expenditure side for the general fund. Our general fund expenditures and the information that was presented before you, there was only a couple of categories that showed some what we can call significant increases or decreases over last fiscal year at March 31st. Overall, the expenditures at March 31st, 2012, $9.88 million, 69% of the budget, compared to last fiscal year, $10.05 million, 67% of the budget in fiscal year 2011. So our expenditure-wise, we're pretty close to where we were last fiscal year at this particular time. The primary changes are associated with judicial administration, law enforcement, and a few changes within our public works division. For judicial administration, we've talked about the fact that our expenditures show an increase due to the cost of detention care, both adult and youth detention. If you recall, for our law enforcement, we showed that the expenditures this year actually decreased when you compare those to fiscal year 2011 at March 31st due to some vacancies and vehicle acquisitions that have not occurred as of March 31st. Public Works, if you recall, we talked about some decreases that have been associated with some street improvement projects that have not been completed through March 31st, 2012. Those funds are reserved for projects. And of course, lastly, our Public Works refuse collection and disposal that did increase from fiscal year 2011, March 31st to 2012 by $122,000, primarily associated with our lease payments in this fiscal year for our garbage truck, and a slight increase in tipping and other disposal costs. So those are the three areas of our general fund that showed changes, either increases or decreases, primary changes.
Before you move on, and you may get back to Russ again, on the public works piece, streets decreased by 415 due to street improvement projects not completed. The project's still out there and still need to be done. Is the money there?
Yes.
What does the statement mean? Can you explain what that statement means then?
Yes. The money that is still there in fiscal year 2012 is reserved for paving and overlay projects. We just not have spent the funds through March 31st, 2012.
You have not?
We have not. Last fiscal year at March 31st, 2011, there were some major projects that had been completed during this particular time. Now, we may have to defer to Mr. Pace in terms of the plans from now through June 30th for that, but that's why we see that decrease from fiscal year 2011 to fiscal year 2012 at March 31st.
I think I understand that. So you're talking about we reduced expenditures because it hadn't been spent yet.
That's right, and those funds have been...
I apologize for being slow enough.
Oh, that's okay.
Can I ask a question on that same regard? We budgeted $1.9 million. We spent $1 million. You're comparing up there 2012 and 2011. Are we going to spend the $1.9 million for 2011?
$1.9 million in public works, streets?
Streets. That to me is I'm glad to know that why we're down from 2011, 2012, but the bigger question is, are we going to be spending the $1.9 million that we have budgeted for this year when we've only spent $1 million so far? Are we going to spend another $900,000 in the fourth quarter?
Can I certainly bring that question?
And if you're not prepared for an answer, that's fine. We just kind of need to know where we are. But you see where I mean.
It will be spent, yes, sir.
It will be spent. Okay.
But it's in the budget.
Yeah, it's in the budget.
Yeah. It's kind of like paving. You don't pave in the wintertime. You wait till spring and summer and passes over July 1 for carryover.
All right. In terms of general fund and overall analysis of where we expect to be at the end of June 30th, 2012, we do want to state that, of course, our goal, of course, in terms of expenditures from now until the end of the fiscal year, we want to kind of preserve our current fund balance. And our current fund balance at the end of last fiscal year was $2.381 million. Now, in your last financial report presentation, I did mention that there were some departments that will require some additional appropriations from City Council. Of course, we will hope to find additional resources within the general fund to kind of do some transfers to accommodate those additional appropriations. There was a couple that I mentioned. Of course, we've already talked about how the amount of money that we need to take care of our juvenile detention, for an example. We're going to need additional appropriations for that. Of course, we talked about the Southampton County revenue sharing payment. Additional $38,000 would be needed for that. But again, we hope to accommodate those particular additional appropriations within the current year's operating budget based on monies that we have left from vacancies and just some unused funds. Okay. The electric fund, you have a slide that's within your agenda packet material that kind of shows the cash balance in the electric fund. We want to concentrate, of course, on the cash. Cash in the electric fund at March 31st, 2012. We show that as $552,800, a decrease of $1.14 million from the prior year at the end of the third quarter. And I did want to show council a history of the cash balance in funds for fiscal year 2012. The VEMA payments that are listed here are just for informational purposes. They have no correlation to the numbers here. The month-to-month variance is the difference between the revenue that has been posted to cash in terms of the payments we're getting from our customers versus the actual expenditures, VEMA payments being the majority of those expenditures, also your accounts payable and your payroll. And this is pretty much in...
Ms. Rawlins?
Yes.
Have you projected out what you expect the cash balance to be at the end of the fiscal year?
We are if I may, the city manager and I are working together on that information, and of course, when we're ready to present our proposed budget information to City Council, we're providing those details.
All right, thank you.
Along with the city manager's proposed plan to restore the balance in that particular fund.
But just one additional comment. You did provide at a previous meeting a projection for that, which I believe was in the 500,000 range. Was
Well,
that
I believe it was a little lower than that. For some reason,
3 to
I'm
5.
remembering, right, a little lower than that. About 386 is what I'm
But
remembering.
as stated, we are refining that, and we'll be presenting that when the budget, and of course, in a work session format with the city council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Rollins, before
Yes.
you go farther than that, go back one slide, please, ma'am. Not yet.
This one?
All of that information is really good, and you talked about the pluses of extra revenue, and you talked about the shortfalls. At future meetings, could you do a summary sheet at the end that listed by category each department and what the shortage is, or what is the overage, so we can see how they balance out?
Right.
Would you help us by giving us a summary page of that item, category by category?
Sure.
Because I see what it is, but when I go back and try to put it all together, I don't see what the bottom line
Right,
is.
absolutely.
And one other thing that I want to bring up too, had been talked about us not getting the IP money next year, but we have restructured the debt and put that extra debt money to the side to help take care of some of that as well for the next couple, 3 years.
Okay.
That needs to be brought out as well, that it's not all doom and gloom that we're not getting it. We have made some
Wouldn't that likely be posted in the next year's budget
It'll be
as a way to fill in that hole?
Well, that's what it'll be. It'll be transferring it from a
Reserve?
reserve to an unreserved portion, whatever is needed to make it up at that point. But I just wanted that brought out because we didn't talk about that at the
Okay,
time.
all right. Absolutely. And when we actually do the budget presentation in terms of what your requests are, we will, of course, because we need to have that information to sort of kind of know whether or not this number right here is going to increase or decrease, so that information is very crucial, so we make sure that we provide that to City Council.
Thanks, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the goal, if you're going to maintain your fund balance at the 2.3, is at the end of the day, any overages, any shortages are made up, and we get to zero. Is that not correct?
Correct. Get what to zero?
You asked for a recap?
Yeah.
I think I'm doing this in the form of a question, not a statement.
Got
Isn't, if you do all the pluses and minuses that he's talking about, if you're going to keep your fund balance at exactly 2.381,
Right.
that means they will come out to zero.
Yes, that is the goal now.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, that's the goal. That's what she
Yeah.
said.
That's
Well,
right.
actually, the
That's
goal would
within
be better than
Well,
that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Come out with a plus number.
Yes.
And that is within the general fund. That does not include if we have to do any transfers between other funds, but this is the general fund.
I understand.
But then when you tie in all the other funds and moving that money around, the goal is to hit that target.
That's correct.
Okay, and that marks the conclusion of the presentation. Now, I did not provide any information slide purposes for the water and sewer fund. I thought that was pretty self-explanatory and also our airport fund. But if you have any questions regarding those two, I'd be more than happy to address those at this time.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to follow up with Ms. Rollins?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one comment in that
Please.
I thank Ms. Rollins for doing the charts. I think it does, I'm kind of a visual person, and it does help me to see where we're going, and it's a good first step. Thank you.
And I thought something else that really helped was the prose that she gave us explaining a lot of that stuff. That was extremely helpful. And again, I will recommend that as we get this, if we can find ways to go through it before tonight and be generous with asking Ms. Rollins if you need an explanation, or with the city manager, because I'm more than willing to walk you through any questions that might come up when we try to look at it by ourselves. Okay?
Alrighty.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure will.
Good job. Okay. The next item is old and new business. Then the first item is the real estate reassessment report. Mr. Wampler?
Mayor, council members, city manager, city attorney. My pleasure to be here again. We are in the process of wrapping up the general reassessment for your fiscal year 7/1/2010. And I sort of hate to be the bearer of bad news this time, but I'm not going to give you an increase on your real estate values. At this point, it looks like the overall decrease is probably going, the preliminary figures are indicating about a minus 10% right now. We hope to close the file by May 1 or May 2nd. We still have some massaging to do. We're looking at some data. This one report that I gave you all right here, this is just a sales ratio report that I ran from sales that we've accumulated since July of 2010, when we closed the last file on the reassessment, up through February of 2012. And it indicates about 113% sales ratio, which somewhat mirrors the Department of Taxation. Their last report put out was about 110.42, which in layman terms indicates that if your house is assessed at $113,000, or it's assessed at $100,000, you're paying taxes on $113,000. Or same way with the Department of Taxation from Richmond, we got to bring these values down, and we're seeing some similar patterns. We're closing up Isle of Wight right now, right just north of you all. They're on the fiscal year, and we're seeing some similar patterns there in Isle of Wight. The one thing that concerns me more here, if you go to the third page, the number of foreclosures and short sales that are worked in with your fair market transactions. Right now, we're looking at about 30% foreclosures, 29% short sales, or a combination of about 41% foreclosures and short sales of your good sales, which I have some concern with those. As appraisers, we don't really recognize distressed sales in our market analysis, but when I have a number this high, I think we do need to recognize them at some point. I just ran the ones in Isle of Wight County, and their 2011 and 2012 were about 10%. So they're somewhat not quite as high, but these are the things that we're going to be looking at here in closing this file by the 1st or 2nd of May. We do have some March 2011 sales that we're going to analyze. We won't be able to get the April sales. I don't think they'll come out of Cortland until about May the 10th. But I hope to, like I say, I hope to reiterate again. I'm planning on closing the file May the 1st. We're going to try to mail the notices on or about May the 8th, and we're going to start our hearings. Again, I think we're going to have about 6 days, as we have in the past. The first hearing will start Tuesday, May 22nd, And they'll continue the 23rd, the 24th, and 25th. And then we're going to have 2 more days in June, June the 5th and 6th, and that'll be advertised in the notice that'll be mailed out on the new reassessment. We'll also put I've coordinated this with the Commissioner of Revenue in the past, and we'll put a notice in the Tidewater News about the hearings also. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a question. Can you explain the columns on the first page? There's a column that says sales price, and then there's a column that says assessed value in 2010.
Right.
That creates a ratio.
Right.
Would you help us with understand that?
That is assessed value that went on the books in July 1, 2010.
Okay.
And that's not the value that's not our current 2012 value. Right now, those are values that were established back then. That's right.
All right.
Right.
So
the sales price is a sale that the property actually sold for.
Okay. We'll drop down to line 39. There's a $300,000 house on Clay Street that was appraised at $280 and sold for $300. And then the ratio is 93%.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next house underneath that was appraised at $128 and went up to $155, and that's 121%. And I thought that if it went up, is it consistent that if it sells for more, that it's lower? What's that ratio number?
That is, like I said earlier, the total is 113, and if you're paying taxes, if your house is assessed at $100,000, you're going to be paying taxes. And this is just the average of these 55 sales is $113,000. But there again, that's.
I will explain just explain those 2 examples to me. I think they tell me something. I don't know what they're telling me because they look to be inconsistent.
If I may, it appears that the formula changed halfway through the page. Before, they were taking sales price and divided into assessed value. Those that you're referring to appears that they've done it the opposite way, as far as numerator and denominator.
Which ones? Where do they start now?
If you look at the 300,000 and the 280.
Line 39.
Line 39, okay.
All right, you've taken the sales price, divided in, and you've gotten the 93%. You've taken
All right, Barry, which way did you do that?
If you took the assessed value as the numerator.
Okay, that's correct.
Divided by 300,000, you get to 93%, which is consistent with the upper part of the page.
Okay.
But on the one that he's referring to on the next page down.
Oh, I see. That should be.
You've taken your denominator and numerator and flip-flopped them on some of these back
right.
and forth.
That should be 82. I see what's. Yeah, the formula has changed on these.
Is it right to change the formula? Or was
No,
it just a miscalculation?
No,
it was a mistake.
Okay.
This is Aaron.
I was getting mighty confused when I saw that.
Right. They have been reversed. Is what's happened.
Right. And you may have a few on this page done that way.
All right, but now go down to line 47. Well, it's the same house, and it's got a different ratio.
Again, which one? Line 47?
Line 47.
Mm-hmm. Again, the numerator and the denominator were flip-flopped, is what happened. If you look, the other one was 93%. It should have been.
In other words, that should have been 90. That should have been 93.
Right.
Yeah, we'll recalculate.
I have a question.
Okay, anytime the sales value is higher than the assessed value, it should be less than 100%.
Well, that's what I thought.
Right,
but then the illustrations weren't showing that. And I was getting confused.
Right,
formula copy, I think.
I don't, with these being flopped, I don't think that's going to affect the ratio, but I will rerun these.
Well, I was asking more for clarification, not trying to be nitpicking.
Right.
It just wasn't making sense to me.
But that's basically what we're saying. This is just the indication to me is where, the values do have to come. Right. The values will be dropping somewhat from what we've seen. It's pretty much citywide.
I would tell me, just to continue this conversation so I get it clear, look at the last entry on Ridge Road. It was appraised for $583
Okay, now which item number is that?
59.
No, that's not the appraised value, Mayor, that's the value that's on the books now for
The
that
assessed
piece of
value.
property, the assessed.
No, it's assessed
That's what we're
value.
taxing them at.
Right, that's
assessed value.
the assessed value, yes.
That's what I'm looking at.
Set 2 years ago.
Okay, set 2 years ago, and it sold apparently for $320. So what does that 182 tell me?
It's assessed at 182%.
Of the sale value?
Right.
Okay.
Too high, higher than.
Right,
higher than what it
exactly.
really
About
sold at.
82%.
And that's a good example of why you're doing a reassessment every 2 years, because that has changed dramatically,
Okay.
and that
I got
individual
you.
property owner is paying a disproportionately high share.
And really, some of these, like the number 3 sale, maybe that number 59 sale, your highs and lows could be pulled out. I just left them in there, and, you know, in this market, we're not only seeing it here, but in other localities, you know, it's, hey, what will you give me for it? Not what I'm asking for it, or it's just a real hard market right now to analyze everything, and you throw a lot of these foreclosures and short sales into the system, and it really
Question, Mr. Mayor.
affects
Yes,
the
sir.
values.
I want to thank Mr. Cheatham for explaining, for spotting that, being an accountant, that it was flip-flop, because I'm not familiar with the numbers like that. But you said it was just a mistake. My concern or question is, how could you, if you're using a particular formula to derive a figure, how could you flip-flop them without, you know, how can you make that mistake?
This was probably the computer. We valued these, and I really didn't check these after I ran it. You know, we just
Okay.
wrote the sum formula, and
Okay,
that's
but
what's
this kind of computer error, can it tend to get passed and cost citizens to pay more on their property taxes than actually they should be paying?
Yes, it very well could, but like I say, right now, that's what we're doing. We're looking at things like this and running their data and their
Now,
sales ratios.
And if I could interject, Councilman, it can actually do the reverse just as easily. It can
Well, yeah,
have
I'm
them
sure,
paying
but I don't think
less.
the citizens would mind as much if it
That's the problem.
in their advantage.
They probably would appeal it if they're paying more, but they probably wouldn't.
But
Well,
my
some would.
concern is there any method, particularly with you, to ensure accuracy in what you are appraising and
Well,
charging?
it's just like what the Department of Taxation does right here, where they come in behind us and they run these ratio reports. So they do come in and, look at our work. If these reports get below 70%, I know localities can lose their ABC funding. So there are some bounces and checks that they do look at our work.
And what is,
Go ahead.
and what has been, this company, how long have you guys been doing this?
This is our third, will be our third cycle.
Third cycle, which is a 1 year cycle?
2 years.
2 year cycle.
I think in 2008, I think it was around a 17 or 20% increase, and I think in 2010, it was a plus 10% increase, and like I say, it looks like 2012 is going to be negative. Looks like we're seeing negative numbers this cycle.
I'm always a little alarmed when we are subject to numbers that determines what we're supposed to pay, when there is room for error in those numbers. And I'm happy that, like I said, that this was pointed out. And I wanted to ask, in the past 3 cycles, how many times have there been errors and they were detected and corrected? You can go with percentage.
Right. I really don't know a percentage, but it's a mass appraisal process. You know, if I would, we don't go in the houses. We just saw exterior. If we're asked in, we go in. There are going to be errors, but we try to keep them at a minimum as much as we can. We do probably about 100. I think this year we have about 127,000 parcels under contract. And it is a mass appraisal process, and there are errors. I wish I could tell you there was no errors, but there are errors that happen, and our hearings will indicate, in the call volume will indicate from the public, you know, when we start these hearings, the 22nd, that'll tell me real quick Of course, we're not going to see the number of people we have in the past due to the decrease. We're liable to see some people that come in and say, hey, I want my property, and we're seeing this a lot now. I want it. Why did it go down? I don't want it to go down. I want it to stay up. But the market, we're sort of like historians. We just follow the market. But there are errors out there, and it is a mass appraisal process. We're doing 3,800 parcels here in the city of Franklin in a short amount of time. But we try to keep them, to a minimum as best we can. A lot of times, basement finish. Of course, you don't have a lot of basements here, but that's a hard thing to estimate. Sometimes we might be off on the number of bathrooms in the house. Sometimes the interior of a house, it could be, cathedral ceiling could be inside the house. We don't get to see that unless we go in.
So would I be accurate in saying you pretty much guesstimate? These sales are what we mirror or comparable sales are what we mirror our subject property to. These 55 sales, we'll compare them to similar houses, and that like I said, we're sort of like historians. We just follow the market, and that's what tells us, what the value of this piece of property is, or, we'll look at vacant land sales to allocate for our land value. Of course, we don't have a lot of vacant land sales here in the city, but we sort of just follow the market, and that tells us what, how they're appraised and what we put on a piece of property. And what is the procedure for estimating this property, assessing this property as a drive-by?
No, we're actually on site. We measure, check measurements, go around the property, walk around the house, just look for changes. Any building permits we get through the Commissioner of Revenue's office, we go out on site and run those, additions, renovations, anything of that nature.
Now, short of the permit process, if anyone's done any renovation on the inside of their house that would have increased the property value of their house, and you happen to come through when they're not there, then their property could be undervalued or overvalued.
Well, that's a good question. We look at things like, new roads, new windows, new electrical box, new amp meter. That sort of tells us, that, hey, that property has been remodeled, or, some work is done on it. So, those are the indications that we look at to increase a piece of property.
And to reach the end game of where I'm going, if the citizen has a dispute with whether it's assessed at too much or too little, how stringent is the process for them finding reconciliation or being able to get it worked out to their satisfaction, considering there are such degree of built-in error?
All the records they're all public records.
So all the citizen has to do is tell you that I don't think it's that much. You will reassess the property and err on the side of the citizen?
The burden of proof is really on the citizen to bring in, documentation such as an appraisal or, something of that nature. But we'll certainly,
I understand. I kind of understand. I understand exactly what you're saying, but considering that it's understandable doing mass assessments that there are errors, it would seem to me that the burden of proof would fall on the person who is doing the assessment to prove that it's assessed that way, opposed to the citizen having the burden of proof to assess a different figure.
Right, I understand that. And like I say, we'll sit down with them and go over their property record card, the square footage, number of baths, number of bedrooms, things.
But you say the burden of proof is on them.
Right, that's the way the law reads. That's exactly right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There's some, I think what a little bit different than what Councilman McLemore was going. I understand how you do the assessment, but I'm more concerned that we have errors in math formulas. What steps do you take to make sure, like, for instance, in this particular list, this house is listed twice? So
which house is that one?
The number 39 and 47. 39, row 39 and row 47.
37 and 55 are listed twice.
You say 39 and which one?
47.
And I think it's listed twice because the map number, you dropped off the last two digits on one, you had it on the other.
We don't need to get into the specifics. What my question is, what do you do to make sure that there are no math errors in reports like this? I mean, do you just put them on there one time and you're done with it? Or
No,
does
we
you-
checked those. This one, and this is my fault, they printed this one off for me, and I did not check it. I don't know what is the matter with that, that's a different map number.
That shouldn't.
Well, the map number's the
map-
same except for the last two digits.
Yeah, but the address is the same.
But you had the same problem on 37 and 45. and
55.
the exact same numbers on everything.
Oh, you
There's
got
a
on
lot
it
of
3
double
times.
Duplications on
55 too,
You got 37 and 45. What'd you say, Ben?
and 55.
The account number's different than
And 55. Well, 55, where's that listed the second time?
This one's
at the bottom of the first page.
It's all got the same address, but it's got different. It's got a different.
Different account number.
that. And it's got a different map number.
Could be a lot. Could be a lot. versus-
Now maybe my counsel.
I will check these.
I guess, but I was, again, my question to you is, what steps do you undertake to make sure that the math calculations, does your computer program check a series of numbers at the bottom to make sure? What do you have in place so that this doesn't happen on the final?
Well, that's just a software program, pretty much checks all that, good data in, bad data out. This is just human error on our part, right here. But the software system that we use, this is there again, I reiterate, this is the third time we've used it. It does check all the math and, depreciation, grading.
Do you compare this final report
Right,
to that to
yes,
make sure
yes,
that there aren't
right,
any errors on this?
right.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Walker, based on what Benny was just saying, if you look at 55 and then you look at 45, it has a different map number and it has a different account number, but it's the same address and the same dollar amount.
Could be multiple properties at that address. I don't know if it's
I know where it is and it's not. It could be one, it could be
This-
one.
this could be a back-
two lots.
That right there is that looks like that house sold, I think what that house sold in 2010 and also sold in 2012.
I got you.
I believe that's what happened
Oh, I know
with that property right there.
That's right, that's right. But it's sold, but you got the same, no, you don't.
Well, we can certainly check.
What happened, that was a lot sale,
Yep.
I believe, and then this is a new house that sold on it, and that's what,
That's right.
that's what happened right there.
But let me ask you another question that troubles me. I'm trying to figure out how you get a better than 100 or less than 100. And I thought I understood that if the assessed value was higher than the sale price, that generated 100 plus.
Right, that's,
Okay.
if the
Is
assessed
that-
value is higher than the sales price, you will get 100 plus.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please look at line number 45. 78 versus 70.
Right, that was right,
That's not correct.
right,
based on your
that
formula.
should be 111.
Okay,
That's
now
what
look
I said
at
earlier,
line
there's
item
several.
49. That isn't correct either.
Mr. Mayor, that's why I made a statement that there's several of them on here that have the reversed divisor on it.
The formula.
Well, I worry,
formula.
based on
I
what
do
Benny
too.
said, is you've got a computer program that you plug in the data and it's
I
supposed to.
agree.
This is our software, this is not the camera software.
I don't care.
I understand,
If you use
I know.
software, that should be
Right.
the same every time.
Right,
should it
I
not?
understand, I know what happened.
All right, well, look at number 51. That's not the same concept, nor 53.
Right. I think from 38, they were all reversed from 38 down.
Okay.
I think that's the,
Question,
they were basically inverted.
would it help when you send out the notices to send out the formulas so that the homeowner can do the math themselves, just to double check?
There's really not a formula to attach to that notice. They're all on public record. If they want to come in, use the Commissioner of Revenue's office and get a copy of their property record card, they most certainly can.
She makes a valid point, because that way, and I don't necessarily agree with that the citizens should have to redo your formula. They should be able to pretty much bank on you got this right.
Right,
But still, it would, I don't see why you couldn't add to that assessment the formula that was used to derive the number that you're charging them.
what could be added to that would be their property record card, could be added to that.
But that doesn't help them
That has all
with
the
making
formulas on
sure. Well, see, I'm sorry, but this is another one of these cases where there is no set way of determining what a person is going to be charged. We're hearing software errors, and I know we use computer software, it's in today's technology and everything, but the bottom line, particularly in this economy, is we can't afford to be making mistakes that's going to cost citizens, and if they don't catch it, well, tough luck.
Right, I understand.
I guess what we're all asking you indirectly is, would you go back and check it all?
We certainly will. We'll rerun this.
Just to make sure
Realizing
it's
this is preliminary, will we see another sheet before we go to press on this thing?
I mean, I could have another one out tomorrow to you.
But will it be accurate?
I hope so. Well, I know what happened on this one. Like I say, that formula was inverted at 38. I see exactly.
But unless there's something wrong with your computer, why would it just go from one formula to another one for the same process?
The girl that put this together for me, she ran them backwards the first time and ran them. I had her to run again, and I know that's why I know exactly what happened.
Mr. Mayor.
Do you think it would, do you think it'll have any overall impact when you correct all that?
I don't think, no.
Would that adjust
I don't
the
think it
Well,
will.
would you confirm that for us?
I'll have a copy to you tomorrow.
But this doesn't have any impact on the individual because this is a separate card that they get.
This
that
has
will go
no
in.
impact on the individual.
This is just a recap to show us what the increase or decrease was for the whole. I hear what you're saying, Councilman McLemore, but this is not what's going to tell everybody what their increase is. They're going to get a card that says, this is your new assessment, and that will have their data on the land and the house together.
All this has are assessed values and sale price, period.
This is more of use.
My question though to Vinnie though is, if at the end of the day, on the bottom of the second page, it says the average is 113%, but if those numbers have been incorrect getting there, would that be 110, or would it be 108, would it be 115?
I think it'll be these numbers were just inverted, I think it'll be pretty close, but I'll read. And there again, these sales are 55 sales that, I pulled randomly
Are there
out.
more sales than that?
Of course,
Sir?
yeah.
Were there more sales than 55?
Oh, we have, as you see on this sheet here, is 100 and, we had about 182 sales
You were
here.
using this as an illustration.
Exactly.
Right.
But my concern with that is, as you said, you picked them random. And if we can find these many questions in a random selection, I'm sure we might could find as many concerns if we saw the actual ones. And since this is 2010, are these actual figures, and you said the person, for example, their house was assessed at $100,000, but they were actually being taxed at $113,000. I think you used that number. So these figures have gone out, and these homeowners have been assessed and charged their tax according to these numbers back in 2010.
That's right.
So the errors that we're finding now, it's kind of like too late. They haven't paid it now.
No, these numbers, these assessed values are correct.
That's what's on the books, what's assessed for 210.
And that's because you go around and look at the house and you give that assessed value.
Right,
That was done in 2010.
In 2010.
And based on the sales prior to that.
Right, these values are correct. And these are the values that were, as I stated, were on the books July 1, 2010. All these values have changed now.
I mean, 114 numbers, 114 different items. I think if you were just using for illustration.
Well, no, this was 55.
No, I'm going on to the second page, and I haven't even looked, and we haven't even discussed some of these addresses and found them, because I credit my colleagues for matching addresses and things, and I hadn't even looked at it like that. But we've got 100, your total is 114 different items listed.
No, that's the number of lines. That's the number of lines.
The number of lines.
They're skipping lines.
Sales.
They're skipping lines. So
Gotcha, they get the
half as
But
many.
Headings and everything else.
Okay, I was going by the
but
numbers.
there again, if you look at 45 and 55, that is correct, even though they're on there twice. That property has sold twice, and that might.
Well, one's a lot and one's a half.
Right.
I think we're beating the dead horse personally. I think what we need to do is allow him to rerun it and send it to us so that we can look at it again. I think going over and rehashing that, gee, look at us, we found all these mistakes is fine.
No, I'm not that far.
I think what we need to do is look at the.
Yeah, we'll take it, I'm gonna take another look at it. I do apologize. Any other questions, or?
No, but I want to say, it's not my, I mean, I would love there to be accurate report, and that we didn't have questions.
I
But
understand.
when reports come up that we can find discrepancies in, I can't help but wonder, suppose nobody here had ever asked that question. We would have left here tonight assuming everything was accurate. And if we don't, now the next time you bring it back, I'm sure it'll be accurate. But that's like if somebody makes a mistake and you tell them what the mistake was, then it's pretty easy for them to make sure they don't make the same
Right.
mistake
This was-
again.
this had not been proved. I printed it, I had it printed, I did not, but I know, like I say, I know exactly what the error is on it.
Okay, very good.
Is this just using Excel, or is it a separate program?
Excuse me?
Is this just Excel, or is it a separate program?
No, this is just Excel. Yeah, this is just Excel program that we use.
So you could just copy the formula down, then you wouldn't have that issue.
Right.
That's right.
Any other questions?
When will you have the final numbers?
We'll probably have the
First
final, like, increase or decrease, probably
Early part?
by May 1, May 2.
Okay, early part of May.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could we just follow up on this? Could you get the corrected of this report to Mr. Martin for him to distribute to us?
I'll have it
as
to
soon
him
as you
tomorrow.
can? That'd be fine.
Have to tomorrow. All righty.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Oh, one other thing I might add, as always in the past, we will have certified appraisers at our hearings here in the city of Franklin.
All right, thanks. Very good. Thank you. Next item is a report on the VAC. Shall we start? Mr. Williams, do you want to start, or do you want to have Mr. Dinah start?
I'll be happy to start. There's a report in the agenda.
Yep.
I hope it addresses the question that Vice Mayor Johnson asked at the last meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about the report.
Okay. Ms. Knapp?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Racine Johnson, council members, City Manager Mr. Martin, and City Attorney Taylor Williams. Last Monday's council meeting, I watched the council from my home instead of coming to the council due to not feeling well that day. I was aware that there were questions raised from the VAC. At that time, I had decided that if there were questions that needed to be answered or concerns, that I would be more than willing to answer those concerns. I sent out an email to all council members requesting or asking that if you had concerns and questions, to please email me those concerns and questions so that I may answer your concerns, and or if I had to do some research, have time to do research. I did not receive any questions and concerns from any of you council members or the mayor or vice mayor. So I'm assuming that any questions and concerns you possibly had possibly went away because I didn't get any questions and concerns. So, but I did put together and I put in front of you kind of an update on what has happened in the last couple of weeks, that maybe that would help answer some of your questions or just your thoughts that you may have. And so I pretty much have explained that to you all in the letter form. I hope you've had time to kind of read that. It kind of gives you an idea of what actually transpired prior to the March 26th of them actually starting the booting process again. The actual VAC, they're constantly in the area. Where you saw a rush of seizures happened to be because we sent the new file. The taxes that were due in December that were not paid, that file was sent out. By law, I was allowed to send that file on March 6th. But as I explained to you in this form of letter, the file was a delay due to my being out due to illness. By law, I am required to give the citizens a 30-day notice prior to sending out a assisted collection effort. So January 31st, we ran a letter of every delinquent taxpayer and sent that out to them, giving them till March 6th to either pay the taxes or come in and make a payment arrangement. They had an additional 20 days because I did not send the file out while I was out due to my illness. So on March 26th, they had until February 1st till March 26th to come in, pay the payments, pay the taxes, or make arrangements. We were very explicit in the letter to please come in, please make a payment arrangement, pay it, or set up an arrangement. And it also stated in that letter that if they chose not to do that, that their vehicle was subject to seizure. So I felt like my letter is very explanatory. It lets them know that this will happen to them, and giving them the option to come in. We did have a lot come in and did get on a payment plan, but yes, there are some that just ignore those letters, and this is what happens. If you'll look, I went ahead and let you know that there are, since the March 26th until Friday's date, we've had 117 seizures. Of those seizures, it states in my letter that 3 have not paid the taxes. They're still sitting on the lot that VAC has. There are also 3 others, a total of 6 are sitting on the lot. 3 have paid their taxes. For whatever reason, which is between VAC and the taxpayer, those vehicles have not been redeemed. I do know one of them is waiting for a second tow because it is not operable, so it is being waited for another person. She's got to get somebody who can fix the vehicle to have it towed. So that is that. I also kind of wanted you to know, of that 117, how many actually were towed, and of that 43 were towed off of, they were booted. If they were not picked up prior to the 5 o'clock, or if they were seized after 5 o'clock, they have to be towed. It is a law that they have to be towed after 5 o'clock. They cannot sit on a piece of property after 5 o'clock with a boot on it. It is the safety of the vehicle, plus that would put the liability on the VAC company. They cannot take that liability. They take that vehicle prior to being towed, as I have explained to you in the past. Before it is towed, they call a tow truck out of town because of the type of tow truck that is required for them to use. They have to take pictures prior. They have to take pictures after it's towed to make sure that there is no damage done to that vehicle. There incurs a cost for all of that, plus the manpower that it takes for that. So yes, there is a cost on the towing. I am not involved with that. I have no control over the towing. I have no control over who's towed or who is not towed. I only have control of the taxpayer prior to 5 o'clock coming in and paying their taxes. If they do not pay it all, and they are going to be towed. That is a requirement VAC has. I would like to point out, for those who are in the audience who do not have that, when I ran the report on March 22nd, which was Friday before the booting on Monday, we were $496,133 in delinquent taxes. Since that date, as of Friday, this past Friday, we're down to $430,661. That is a decrease of $65,471 that has been collected in 30 days. Of that $65,000, VAC assisted in collecting $30,940. That is how many citizens or taxpayers that had a seizure that came in and paid those taxes. We had a total of 65,000. Some of the other money came in from debt set-off or just walk-ins. But VAC only assisted in the $30,940. If we had not had that assistance, I can assure you that amount of money would not have been walked in the door to collect.
Questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So, as a result of the amount collected from VAC seizures was $30,000, the additional $34,000 was collected from the debt set-off and walk-ins. So we've collected more from debt set-off and walk-ins than we did using from VAC.
Correct.
All right. I initially wanted to amend the agenda last council meeting to ask some questions and reiterate for the citizens and for you and to get some clarification, which you have spoke tonight in regards to it being the law, some laws that were applicable in this situation. However, I was approached by 2 citizens within the last month. One citizen owed $77 delinquent tax. She was booted after 5 o'clock, so she didn't have an opportunity to call to make any arrangements, and I understand she could have done that before she was booted. But it was a senior citizen, and she called me, I brought her down, and I paid her tax. She paid her tax. They gave her a receipt at City Hall, and she went, collected her car. They charged her $260 at VAC. Now, that citizen, when you combine the $77 that she owed for tax, along with the $266, our citizen, a Franklin citizen, ended up, because she owed us $77, having to come out of her pocket with money she certainly didn't have on a fixed income over close to $400 as a result of the actions we're taking. And tough for her. She had to pay $260. Then that night, VAC came back to her house. She called me in tears. She said, they're booting my car again because Franklin neglected to notify VAC that she had paid her taxes, and all they did was give her a receipt. If they had not given her the receipt, VAC would have, for her paid taxes, VAC would have never released the vehicle to her. So VAC let her have her vehicle back, but Franklin, someone at your office, I assume, never had her taken off, so therefore VAC in their system, she still owed the taxes. And they came back and were actually booting the lady's car again. This is a senior citizen. She was panicking. She could have had a heart attack. Okay?
I understand.
So,
let me explain that situation to you. You said same day, same night, same afternoon?
No. They booted her one night. She came in that morning, because you were closed. She couldn't come pay you that night.
Correct.
She came in the next morning, paid you
Right.
at 9 o'clock.
Understand.
5 o'clock the same night, they came back again. Or,
Okay,
you
let
know,
me explain
that
the
night.
procedure to you. Every morning at 8:30, we download the new file for anybody who has paid their taxes the day before. My office is responsible for downloading the new file the very next morning. Anybody who's paid the previous day, the code is removed from the file. She paid at 9 o'clock in the morning. That file had already gone through. So we have asked every citizen, because of that delay in sending their file from the time they pay, somebody could come in at 12 o'clock, pay their taxes. The file is already sent to VAC. They run a file every morning prior to leaving their office and download it to every computer that the VAC company uses. So they can't run back every hour and download a new file. We ask the citizens to keep the receipts in the car. If they're even on a payment plan, until we can get it removed, the very next day, we ask them to keep that letter in the car with them, and VAC is to call us and verify it. There is a delay in us clearing the code and VAC picking up the new file. And unfortunately, yes, but VAC and I was told this, was very nice in there. They showed the receipt, they understood that delay, they understand how that works, and they did not. They don't know that this citizen is paid until the citizen comes out. If she had have gotten booted again, they would have called me, and I would have gone on the system and said, cleared, released it.
It was at night, the second time they called.
Right.
So the office was closed. Now, unless VAC was going to call you at home, she would have been booted again.
I have been called at home by them on a certain case, but I'm just telling you, that's why the citizen is asked to keep those receipts in their possession until at least 24 to 48 hours to make sure their code has been removed.
Okay. So in this particular case, as we made and we went around and around in circles before, and you finally said yes, there are occasions when citizens end up paying more money to VAC than they pay to the city of Franklin. So we have released upon our citizens in our efforts to collect our delinquent taxes the most stringent method available in these hard economic times. We had another situation that I wanted to bring to your attention, that a citizen, his son was away to college. He owed $33. They went to his house, started putting a boot on the car. He said, let me pay it. Let me pay it now. They refused to accept the money, then continued to boot his car and tow the car. He ended up paying $290 to get the car back. Once again, by the time you give the 20%, that we only give them 20%, the city ended up collecting about $28, and VAC ended up getting over $300. Now, how they distribute their money, I don't care. But what I am concerned about is it's costing our citizens with this process. Now, is there room in our contract that you've asked us to approve and council approved? Is there room that we can have the process where they can put the boot on the car and not tow it until you've been contacted? So therefore, VAC doesn't make all this money off of our citizens for towing when our goal is to collect the tax money, not to tow the citizens. That's not our goal. That's not a business we're in. So is there any room for us to work with our citizens so they won't have to be getting hit over the head when they pay these taxes, or until they can make arrangements with you to pay these taxes? Is there any room for us to give any consideration to the citizens?
Would you allow her to answer the question?
The question is, and no, there is not a room. I am not involved with the VAC and how they tow a vehicle. That is a contract between VAC and the company that they contract. There is a law that says they cannot leave a boot on a vehicle on public property. If that's,
What about on private property?
That I do not know that answer. That would be something I will check.
Is this a state law?
It is not a law. It is I'm sure it's a city ordinance as long as it is a state law. They cannot leave a boot on property. Example, Walmart. If they were to leave a boot on a vehicle after hours, VAC, during the day, they ride around, they recheck their boots to make sure everything's going okay. 9 times out of 10, the customer comes in very quickly, pay it. Within an hour, the boot is released off of it. After hours, they're not there to monitor that boot, and they cannot take the liability of that vehicle being damaged. I do know of a case, there was an older person, car was sitting on their driveway, they left the boot on till the next morning. They have worked with the citizen in certain circumstances. I don't think they can do it on every circumstances of after 9 o'clock, but if they boot a vehicle after 5 o'clock, then yes, it's going to have to be towed. That is a law for their liability as well as the protection to the taxpayer's property. We give and it doesn't matter if it's $5 taxes owed or $5,000 taxes owed. It is taxes owed that we are trying to collect, and we have had to go to the extreme to collect the money when we have notified the citizen on 3 occasions. We have sent a letter out. We've done everything in our power other than going to their property or their house and asking them for the money. We've done our job. Now it is my job to collect the tax revenue for the city.
You finished?
Yeah.
Wait, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a different question? Yeah. Ms. Dabb, when did the notices go out?
They went out February 1st.
No, I mean, The initial tax notice.
They went out in October. I am doing now.
So they had October until the end of March to come in and
Correct.
make arrangements with you.
Correct.
And that would have saved that guy with $33 or $77, a couple of $100. They need to come in and take care of business. That's what she's explained to them in letters on down the line. It's their responsibility to make arrangements for the taxes. She is bending over backwards, the way I see it, to go collect the taxes. And this is the final straw. They've done everything that they can do to get it done. And the lady that was retired, if she's retired, I believe she had plenty of time, probably walk in to see Ms. Babb and say, can I make an arrangement of $10 a week or whatever. So that's it. She had 77 when it was due.
I'm not arguing your opinion of whether this is a applicable method to collect. You've made it clear that you think it's great, it's okay to boot these cars. I'm not discussing that. What I'm concerned with is you just said there was a case where someone's car, they put the boot on somebody's car in their driveway and they left it overnight. So therefore you were saying that it's in their discretion and they can do that. But then you said on private property. So they do not have to. This lady and this man that I'm talking about tonight, both of them were in their yards. So if they have the authority to make that discretion, then I have to say, well, why do you say it's a law they have to tow it? Or are you saying it's the law they have to tow it on public property?
If it's sitting on the street, that's not private property, that is city property.
Okay, in the yard, well, I'll accept that.
I don't know if it was in the driveway or if it was sitting on the city street. If it's sitting on the city street, it has got to be towed. That is a city ordinance.
Okay.
And a state law because it is not protected.
Since you are the contractor, you contracted their services, can we extend two courtesies for our citizens because these are rough times economically? Can we stop this doing it after 5 o'clock when the citizen can't say, oh, all right, I'll play it, I'm sorry, and save them that towing, those additional expenses? That's question number one. And question number two is, can't we have it so that they will give our citizens that option if it is on private property, that they will leave the boot on until the person makes the arrangement to pay the taxes before they'll tow it?
Answer to your question one, if we were to get out to the public that we are no longer going to boot after 5 o'clock, rest assured, every citizen who owes the city money will not come out till after 5 o'clock because they're going to say, well, they're not going to boot me, so now I can go to Walmart, now I can go to Food Lion, now I can go anywhere in the city. Because I haven't paid my taxes, I'm not going to be booted because it's after 5 o'clock. That is not a working contract. We tell them to seize the vehicle due to non-tax payment. So they have the free hand of tax booting and seizing at their discretion, their time.
Ms. Babb, you have been very generous on multiple occasions. I would like to curtail the balance of the conversation. I think everything's been answered multiple times. You have a contract, you enforce it, and I think we've had enough discussion of this for several meetings worth.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
I will give you, I apologize, I need you have advised everyone that taxes have been billed, they've been rebilled, late notices and all of that. It is our own personal responsibilities to pay them on time or even after time. And if we fail to do that, there are consequences. Ms. Johnson had a question or comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Did council approve your other methods of collection?
I'm not quite sure, the debt set off and all, they do not. That was a state code allowing me to do that. This was debt set off is a state code saying that I have those means. There are other things that the state code says. The state code also says that I can use a third party. Why we brought this to council was because we had just done a restructuring and we felt like it needed to be informed. It was more of an informing you of what I was going to do because it was a new tool that many in the areas were not, I can't say were not, were beginning to join forces and utilizing. And I think Mr. Williams advised me that it would be a good idea to bring it to you all for maybe your blessing is really what it wasn't. It wasn't needed of an approval. Am I correct on that? But it's saying, yes, we understand, this is informative, we want to know. I feel like it needed to be brought as if I'm going to do any new tool, because you are the representative of the city. People are going to come to you, you know, they have come to you, and if I was doing something that you really were not informed of, it would say, well, it would show that you really were not abreast of what's going on in the city. I brought that to you all, so when this started, because it is a new tool for this area, you would have information, yes, the treasurer has started that procedure. So that's why we brought it to you all.
I'd just like to thank you, the people that I have sent to you. It's proven better for them because you have negotiated with VAC on some things. So
VAC, and I'm going to give you this information. VAC is a very good company to work with. Anytime that I have had a problem, I have had a situation, a mistake within my office versus DMV, anytime I call them and say, this was a mistake, the file should have been not sent, DMV, it was abated because of a customer moving out, they have been more than gracious to work with me. They take a lot of abuse out there, and I need to explain this to you. They take a lot of abuse. They have been pushed, their foot has been rolled over, car has driven toward them to run them down. They take verbal abuse day after day. It is not a very good, it's not a kind-hearted job, but they try to do it very gracefully. They know what their job is to do, is to collect the taxes for me. And our citizens have not been very kind to them on various occasions, but they still try to show respect under the circumstances and professionalism. And they let me know when there is problems, and if there are, we try to intervene. We have had to call the police. They have been gracious and assisted VAC and my office on numerous occasions.
And one point of clarification, I think there was a misstatement made ago, just for the 20% that is paid is over and above what we receive.
Correct.
That does not come out of the taxes owed to the city. That's a fee that VAC charges.
Correct.
An additional fee?
We get the taxes that are owed. The state code, and I'm hoping I'm quoting this right, 58.13919 states that any collection tool that we allows that company to collect 20%. VAC, to make sure you understand, Councilman McLemore, VAC only collects 20% of the taxes. If it is $20, they collect 20%. If it's $5,000, they collect the 20% on the taxes owed. They do charge a boot fee, which they are by law allowed to collect. Any other dollars that you have been talking about, that you have been referring to is because VAC has to contract another company to assist with the towing. They do not tow, they do not store. They have to contract another company. Those funds do not come to VAC, it goes to that third party that they are using. So when you keep saying VAC is making this money, VAC is not making this money. They only make 20%. If you calculate 20% in 1 month on that $30,000, that is how much money I will be sending to VAC if I have to collect it. I try not to, but every once in a while I am guilty of assisting citizens, because Mama will come in and say from Alabama to pay daughter's taxes to keep her car from being released. I'm going to help that citizen. But the money that for towing, storage is going to a third party. They pay that to that company. I do not control that. I do not collect that.
Mr. Mayor?
I have a
Mr.
separate question. You've got in here 117 seizures. 3 have not paid delinquent taxes. How long do they hold the vehicle before they auction it to pay our taxes?
After 5 days, they contact us. They ask us, is there a lien on this vehicle? We have that information in our file. We send them the information. They then notify the lien holder. After that, then if it is not paid within, I think it's, they do 5 days, and I think it is another 10 to 15 days, then they will start prepping that vehicle for auction. We've had 6 vehicles auctioned since I started this. And when I've talked to them on various occasions, he said that is a very low percentage compared to what they are in the larger cities, or even Isle of Wight. You know, I've talked to them on various occasions what other localities do. Some localities don't even give the taxpayer the option to come in till 5 o'clock. They seize it, they tow it. I am willing to do that till 5 o'clock. And to give you an example, my staff has stayed some nights till 5:45 because a taxpayer came out of Walmart and got booted, and they begged, and we said we will stay here. VAC was gracious to stay and not tow until we got them. The taxpayer, it is the responsibility of the taxpayer to pay their taxes and to communicate with my office. I can't reiterate that enough.
Before you lose your voice, we'll, one more
Sorry.
question.
One again, to
Yes.
follow up on this. Of the ones that have
Yeah, the one
been, have been towed, auctioned, did it pay the taxes 100%, or were there some left?
No, it did. There was 1 or 2 situations that did pay all the taxes. The other situation, there was 2 situations that did not. It didn't even bring enough to cover their fees. I am covered first. 9 times out of 10, when it is auctioned, it is a car that is just not, the value is not there. Unfortunately, if a taxpayer comes back and they buy a new vehicle, I can seize that vehicle for the car taxes that were not paid on the other cars. Any questions? I have one good...
Mr. Cheatham had a question.
Yes, sir.
Realistically, of the 430,661, how much is really going to be collectible out of that?
You know, I'm working on that right now. I'm trying to pull, we have, you know, on reports, we do have some that we know are in. And understanding this 430 not only is vehicles, it is personal property for furniture and fixtures on a business. It is machinery and tools. There are other things that come into this personal property. So I'm working on what is actual true collection. I pulled a report of 2011, all but 86,000 has been collected.
Okay.
So I think that's a very good number.
Say that again, how much?
$86,000.
Is the whole, for 2011?
Just 2011.
Is all that's outstanding.
Exactly. But you might have somebody who has 11 who also has 10 and 9 out there. But I just ran a report for my own knowledge what is outstanding for 2011. So it is a good percentage.
That would be automobile collectible,
Pretty
or is
much.
that all personal?
No, it's all personal property. I don't have I don't desegregate personal property, furniture and fixtures and all that. It's just personal property and the way I run my report.
But you can't do anything about the other personal property.
Sure I can. I can send a distress if they have it, and I have done that to a vehicle. Virginia Auction has assisted me on a personal property, furniture and fixtures, on someone who had not paid their furniture and fixtures since 2008. I sent them to the business. Within 24 hours, I had a check for those personal properties. That is a different type of seizure. It is called a distress, and they go to the property and they'll lock the doors. They can lock the doors. I try to work with the businesses before I do that, but if they won't communicate with me, I do that also. I did 3 last year.
Mr. Tim, did you get everything? No, I mean...
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I truly appreciate you working with the citizens and the way you have worked with them. It's highly appreciated.
Thank you. I enjoy working with citizens. I don't mind helping them, and most of them come in. Once they realize that we're willing to work with them, they hopefully understand that next year this happens. And we did have 2 that were booted last year that got booted this year. It does happen. All right, I have one more thing to share with you all. It is not on your report, but this has been brought up a couple of times during my presentations, but I have some good news to inform you all that Azar, we are finally satisfied with all the meals tax with Azar. As of last, week before last, the $40,572 we received in a cashier's check paying all her all her meals tax, and I just thought y'all needed to know that.
And where is she located now?
In the jail.
Western Tidewater.
She did get arrested?
Yes,
Is
they
it
brought her.
literally here in jail?
Yep, Western Tidewater Regional Jail, as far as the last I heard.
They caught her in trying to pass through JFK. I don't know where she was going or where she was coming from, but she was stopped on a record check in JFK in New York City, and then she was extradited to Suffolk. And before she appeared in court, there was a lawyer showing up with the check, certified funds. And because of that, Suffolk also collected $32,000 plus in delinquent meals taxes that was owed by Mrs. Azar. So getting stopped in the airport in New York City cost the woman $72,000.
Expensive trip.
And she's still in jail.
Expensive flight.
Yeah, but I just wanted
Well,
y'all to
thank you,
know
sir.
that before my next presentation.
Good deal.
She could have
Thank
bought
you.
a plane.
Brought that
Thank
to
you.
Mount Low.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Thank
that's
you.
enough. All right, city manager's report. Mr. Martin?
Have not as good as news as that, but the last meeting, the council authorized city manager to draft a letter to the governor regarding the onerous requirements of the new legislation that was on his desk to be either signed or modified regarding VRS contributions and the system of contributions for the retirement system for local government employees. Pleased to report the governor acknowledged the receipt of our letter, and shortly thereafter, we were in on a conference call with the governor's office and other state officials, and they did modify the process that will give us some relief in the short term. It will allow us to phase in, if we choose to do so, the requirements of employee contribution over a 5-year period, 1% a year. This was already available to the school systems across the state, but now that has been extended to local governments. They also allowed us to if we choose to phase in, if you will, the increase in the retirement system expenditures, the ratio that's utilized this year. That will have the largest impact on our operating budget and helps us significantly in evaluating options for this year's budget. So that's just a verbal report. I just want to let you know that the council's voice was heard. I think it was almost every city in the state and county had written the governor on this according to their staff, and so they did listen, and although they didn't defer all the costs indefinitely, they did modify it. And as I understand it, the General Assembly's agreed with the governor and is either in the process of finalizing or adopting the legislation that'll put all of this out into greater detail. But at this point, we've confirmed that we will be able to phase in these additional costs, which will help us significantly with this year's budget. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Still going to be an increase, just not as significant.
Well, the 1%, if we choose to do it over 5 years, will be 1/5 in the cost associated with the employee share. It'll just be deferred and incrementally occur over the next 5 budgets. If we elect to go with that option, the cost to us immediately for our retirement contribution will be lowered significantly, and that was where the big bucks were. If you recall, I think our estimate was around $300,000 total. That's going to greatly reduce what we have to put in this year's budget.
Very good. Okay. Departmental reports. Any questions on any of the reports that we saw? Any reports on boards and commissions by any members of council?
Yeah, I've got 3 of them. On the business friendly, we met, I don't know if it was myself or Mr. Williams reporting that the IDA did pass the dropping of the covenants on the industrial park at Pretlow. It was not needed to go in front of the IDA for the airport industrial. We also talked about Farmers Market with Downtown Franklin Association. It's been reviewed, and we're helping them with the registration and the assistance out of Ms. Rickman's office. I also had Hampton Roads Planning. It was a short meeting. We discussed again Homeland Security. Senator Webb sent a letter to Secretary Napolitano about why were we cut out of it, but it appears as this year coming we will not be part of the Homeland Security. Also, and the good news there, if you want to bring up good news, is that underneath the current budget per capita, last year was at 82 cents, this year is going to be dropped to 80 cents.
And that's for what, our membership in the PDC?
That's correct. And the jail, we went over a new maintenance contract, the proposals we had 3 of them out there. Mr. Darden out of Public Works was kind enough to come out, as well as Mr. Martin. The entire board went over the contract. Mr. Darden brought up some very good points, and we are now going to start negotiating with one of the 3 because of that. And that's basically it.
Only report that I have is in following on with the 50th anniversary committee report. I'm pleased to announce to you that the monies that were raised, even after the net proceeds going to the Boys and Girls Club, closed out the entire year's worth of events and all the expenses with no cost to the city whatsoever. It was all private money. And they had a lot of projects that they did that it worked out really nicely. And I commend the chairs and the committee for the work that they did on cookbooks and everything all year long.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, if no one else has a report.
Yes, please.
2 things. I want to remind the members of council that the time of year is coming upon us when we need to hold a public hearing to take nominations for persons interested in serving on the school board. I expect that we will put a notice, the required notice in the newspaper, so that the public hearing would be held on May the 14th, because we only have 1 meeting in May, or 1 regular council meeting in May. The rest will be called meetings related to the budget. We need to go ahead and do that May the 14th, otherwise we would find ourselves with our backs up against the wall in June. Also would like to report briefly on the SIPSA board meeting that was held on March 28th. Previously we had indicated that SIPSA had given a proposed budget in February. There was discussion on the budget in March. There is a public hearing Wednesday. The next SIPSA meeting is this Wednesday, and there is a public hearing on the rates that will be charged by SIPSA. The rate that's being advertised is to reduce the tipping fee from $145 to $125, and that's actually being advertised to be effective as soon as June 1st, 2012, which would probably save the city a little bit of money, maybe in the beginning in June. I guess it would actually be the July billing. So hopefully that'll take effect. And I think I had pretty much given you information about the proposed budget. That has not been adopted yet. There'll be a chance, if there aren't too many questions and there isn't a request to have new information brought forward, there is the possibility that the budget will be adopted Wednesday.
Okay. You're going to advertise for the public hearing to the public hearing to be held on the 14th of May.
Yes, and I'll be sending out a memo to all the council members and also to the school board members because they need to understand who is on the board that is eligible for reappointment, because even those persons have to be nominated.
Correct.
Even if it's for a reappointment, they still have to be nominated before they can be considered for the retaining their position.
And I would ask each member of council to be very proactive in confirming with if they choose to serve and looking for those who would like to serve, that we can have the very best representation on the school board that we can possibly get out of the community. So be proactive and encourage your wards and your residents to become involved. Any other reports?
No, but I'd like to commend the SIPSA, but from the highest in the nation tipping fee 3 years ago at $170, and as you can see, it's come down from selling Willebrator and cuts that they've made in their labor, et cetera. A lot of things that were put in place and things that they've done subsequent to that, I think, has started to work some, and that it's come down that much.
Are there any boards or commission appointments that need to be addressed this evening? If they're not, then we will not need to go into closed session. So I would then would allow us to go home early. I've been asked to remind the community that there will be a mayoral debate here tomorrow night at 7 p.m. The public is invited.
Mr.
May
Mayor.
I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to add that this will be the last time that the citizens will actually be able to come and ask some questions at tomorrow night's debate.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Nobody's eager to go home?
Don't know what to do with ourselves now.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Good job.